just going to watch a quick pitch.
God ain't give me a penny, I made $1 million. I got a dog for a father, so I took care of my mother. God threw me a fire, I walked out with my brothers. You know the shadow of death. I was born in the valley, but now I live in the valley. God gave me a house, God gave me depression. God gave us life, but we ain't know it was cursed. I was hurt as a child, you know I still deal with it. About 3 days ago, I planned on killing myself, but I'm still here breathing. You know I'm still here screaming, fuck that shit. We signed for 15 million, and I almost missed it. It's like I sold it. Our best is on, let them know we ready for war. In the club with my boyfriend, I'm never doing this. We might get popped, cause they think I'm some bullshit. It's all for me, that's what the forerunners told me, this is not your speed. While they repeated, they believe from the Apostles' Creed. The most consistency I found in life has never come from people. Still looking for an equal, nobody will believe you.
All right. Love it. So thanks, y'all, for joining us. I'm Michael, as Andrea mentioned. I run Codebase. That's the official Avalanche incubator. But we can dive into that after this. On this stage, we're going to have some of the teams from the first cohort actually present what they worked on, and I can give a proper introduction to the program then. However, at the moment, we really want to talk with the Inertia team here, really about that journey from being a builder to becoming a founder. Right? Like you saw this video. It's great. It's wonderful. Nothing like it, nor even the concept hardly existed, a year ago? So it's been a big year for y'all. And really just kind of want to dive in on what it's been like. So you guys went to undergrad together, is that right? Yeah. Okay. And
I can start off with the
go ahead,
story
please.
there. So Marc and I both went to the University of California, Irvine. And I met Marc my third year, your fourth year, something like that. And I was on a panel, actually, funnily enough, with Avalanche, actually. And Marc met me there, and we pretty much talked for 2 hours afterwards. Yeah, something crazy like that. And we pretty much just hit it off. So we started doing a bunch of little projects here and there together. Nothing very large as we are working on right now, but that kind of kick-started sort of, our, I guess, the seeds of the journey there.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly, right? We've gone through, many ETH Denvers together. We've gone through hackathons together. We've done a lot of stuff together, and it's really fun just getting to know someone before you actually go build something, and that's essentially what we did before.
Yeah, I think the one thing I want, and this is going to be more of a conversation, y'all, so just as an FYI. I think one of the things that's really interesting is how the hackathon kind of turns out, projects that then maybe win money, maybe don't, and then just kind of fly away into the ether. But I think obviously from going to a hackathon or what I would call the builder stage into becoming proper founder, there's a lot of white space there, and it's often not necessarily even about the product or the company, but rather a relationship between you and your fellow co-founders. So I'd love to understand more from you guys, okay, you had met each other, you decided to turn it into a company. What did that process look like? And then maybe we can then dive into kind of your time in the program.
You want to start first? Or?
I can. So, all right. So like I mentioned, we were doing a bunch of different projects together, right? And we went to all these ETH Denvers. We had all this fun and stuff. And we're just okay, let's build something. We started off on these hackathons and stuff. And hackathons they're interesting because they give you this environment where you can essentially come in and build something really rapidly in a very short amount of time. But it's very high level. It doesn't, it doesn't allow you to kind of expand further than those, 1 to 3 days that you actually have the hackathon for. So in that sense, you can only go so far within a hackathon. And that's kind of where we were hey, we've been building these things out, but the hackathons, they're fun, but you can only do so many hackathons before you realize I would like to do something more,
Yeah, but I think it's still important, right? The reason that we work so well now is because there's no surprises. Maybe we fight here and there, but it's all good and fun because, we know that we're building towards the same mission. We're building towards the same product in our heads. However way we actually get there is, up to what actually is impactful.
I remember when we met, I think you guys pitched with a pitch deck, right?
No.
No, you didn't? Okay.
Not.
So I'm curious, what was that? I mean, basically, if you know how to build the thing itself, it's very different than actually getting accepted into an incubator, getting accepted into an accelerator, raising venture capital, et cetera. I don't know. I want to understand more from you guys, like what were the hardest parts of that, and then like where did you really, I don't know, how did you access any resources to kind of get you over the hump to get you ready for that sort of thing?
Yeah. You know, obviously we're at a Codebase panel here, but it is actually very important, the, like, Margot, right? Like, Margot is super important. She's, if you guys don't know, like, the person who helped us develop our pitch during the Codebase Accelerator program. And from what you were saying, like, it's very important to know how to tell your story and to be able to tell, you know, what your product does and what it means. Like, the what it means is the really important part of it, where, you know, you can have an iPod that has like 5 megabytes or whatever, but really you could just say like, my iPod has 1,000 songs in it. And that's the thing that Margot really taught us. Like, just try and say what you actually mean rather than just like dancing around it.
Yeah, let's just off the story route, right? Like let's talk about our story here, right? When we came to ETH Denver and we, met Usman, which I'm not sure if he's here, but we met Usman, one of the other Ava Labs employees, and we got introduced to Michael. We were at a stage where we had this idea, and we were like, okay, we've been doing a few things in the space. We have this really cool idea. We want to take it further. We've hacked together maybe a proof of concept. We've seen some, things that have increased our conviction, but we needed kind of some more of that support, which, we really didn't know where to get. And then Usman was like, well, hey, you guys should apply to Codebase. We have this incubator, this accelerator program that, Ava Labs is hosting, and, you guys should be a part of that. And as we kind of came first into that, we just didn't really know. We were very lost. We were like, hey, like we know bits and pieces of what to do, but there's not really structure around it. Like, and we come from a background where like, I grew up in the Bay Area, so I've been around startups, Marc's been, around the VC space as a whole as well. So, I'd like to think we had at least a bit of a ledge up than, most other people who don't come from those sorts of areas. Yet it was still very unstructured, and it was very like, we have concepts of a plan almost.
I remember working with you guys on your deck earlier in the cohort, and it was a fun exercise for me personally. But I think that there's that really the big key there is really just like the services that we provide are often just like being on the phone with you when you need to be on the phone with somebody.
Yeah.
So.
When Michael says that was a lot of fun for him, that's code word for we had a shit deck. Like.
That's actually true. But no, great, and they won at demo day, so thus we are big fans of these folks in our ecosystem. But maybe I don't know how much longer we have. We have like, I don't know, 10 more minutes or so. But let's say I would love to understand from you guys, like, what's next, and like what advice would you give to folks who are developers or kind of like tinkerers, whether it's technical or business side, who are considering their next step, considering jumping into becoming a founder? Like, what should they know? What should they be afraid of? Where are the landmines?
I mean, this is pretty general, but it holds true, right? Like, there are people who know things that you don't know, and you should be really open to actually learning from them and just really listening to them and just like, really taking it in and implementing it as fast as possible. If it doesn't work, that's all right. But if it does work, then it's going to push you along.
Yeah, I think I view this from two different sides, right? If you're more of a technical person, you have this inkling, you have this like desire to really build out a really fully fledged product, have kind of the best things in there, maybe use the best infrastructure, the best tech stack, whatever. Except oftentimes that leads to, scope creep. And you end up, constantly scaling up and up and up and up. And, I get it. Like, as someone who's worked with lots of engineers, you guys have a tendency to essentially want to build the best thing, which is freaking amazing. Like, I really, really admire that. But I think, within a startup space, when you're going from a project to something that you want to actually really scale to like $1 billion company, you need to ensure that you can really narrow down and build out an MVP as soon as possible. Take away all these like rank the top 10 features and cut out 7 of them, right? And build something as fast as possible, because more often than not you're going to pivot, you're going to change, and then we know this because we're victim to this almost, and our engineering team is going to want to beat our heads into the pan.
And then something strategic, right? Like, you will know when to launch your MVP when it's embarrassing but functional. Like we have a closed beta out right now, and it's a bit embarrassing because it doesn't have everything in our heads out, but it's functional and you can actually use it, and it's quite good for what it is.
Yeah, I think to add on to perhaps answer a bit of that question myself, one of the things that I think is most important for when you're kind of making that transition is thinking like, who cares? Like, why is someone going to care? Oftentimes I see and talk to developers and founders on a daily basis. I see folks who have built this really esoteric but very elegant technical product, and no one cares because they can't use it because it's not something that's actually solving a real problem for them. And I think it's just really important to always come back to like, okay, who are you building it for? What problem are you solving? Like, how much pain are they in based on this thing that you believe that they are in pain about, and then how are you actually solving that? Everything from kind of flows from down there.
Yeah, and I think, a similar thing goes for kind of the BD and non-technical folks, right? I think it's so easy to get caught up in what you want to build out and how much further in the future you're going to go and all these like cool ideas. Like we can partner with these people, we can do this, we can do that. That, oftentimes you have to really take a step back, pull yourself out from the weeds and like, okay, this is where we are now. What can we do now that drives the most immediate impact? And oftentimes that means ranking kind of different things, even if, some initiatives are more exciting than others.
Yeah, and I'd actually say that like, let's say like cascading vision, and the more detailed it is, the more negative signal it is, in my opinion. It's like, oh, you've thought like really hard about this thing, which like I get it, and that's exciting. On the other hand, like what's happening tomorrow, and how are you going to get your first 5 customers?
Yeah, and like we sort of fell into this trap as well. Like we have a whole like Notion page of musings with like 40 different like ideas of things we want to go, places we want to head. And as we continue building, we're realizing really, really quickly that hey, a lot of this shit is changing so fast. And like if you're building the Web3 space, it moves way faster than pretty much any other space. Like I come from a bit of a marketing and a cybersecurity background, and I can tell you like confidently, like 1 week in the Web3 space is like 2 to 3 in any other industry. It's ridiculous.
And currently in the prediction market space, every day is different. Every month the plan changes, and it has to be because everyone else, there are other people out there who's building. So like, you have to focus on what you're building. You have to focus on like what's happening now. And something tangible that we did, we have a wait list of people, and they're still going to get, access to our product when it's in our open beta. But like immediately, we could just pull in people from our general location, in our innovation house, and also just like people who've been following us along for the journey to just help us build out our closed beta.
Yeah, I think it all really just boils down to structure, right? We can tell you all these nitty-bitty, like itty-gritty things, whatever, but it's all structure. Like when we first spoke to Michael, we had concepts of a plan. We had like a bunch of little things we wanted to target, but Codebase really gave us that structure we needed to, really hone in on the stuff that was incredibly important so we could hit our goals effectively.
You mentioned Innovation House. Tell folks what that is.
Yeah. So the Innovation House is an initiative where essentially, TLDR, they took 4 different teams, we're like 16 different founders. There's a few of them here in the audience as well. And they stuck us in a giant house, removed a lot of the friction from our day-to-day lives. We have maids, we have a private chef, which, oh my God, he's freaking amazing. But yeah, funny guy. But that means that we can really just solely sit down, focus on product, and we don't really have, anything to worry about in our day-to-day lives.
We'll be doing these around the world in partnership with, or alongside of all of the summits that we're doing regionally next year as well. So, Argentina was our test case. It seems to be going well. At the very least, everyone's eating well.
Yeah.
We'll see if any product is shipped, but go guys.
I mean, it's kind of it's a lesson as well for people who are just building outside of just the Innovation House as well. Like, being around other founders is really inspiring. Like seeing them wake up at like 5 a.m. makes you feel really lazy, and it makes you want to work harder. So
And I think another thing is like a lot of the stuff within this industry you can't just easily Google, which is why Discord group chats, Telegram group chats are so incredibly popular because you can really learn from other people that have been doing the thing, and that's why I think another reason the Innovation House is so helpful, because we're surrounded by other people like doing the thing, which just means like we can just go up to them and be like, hey, how do you do this? And they'll be like, oh, well, we tried this, maybe try this, So
yeah, how do you set up an L1?
Yeah. we have thoughts on that. We have about a couple minutes remaining. Why don't you guys tell people about what your plans are? Where can they find out more? How can they join the beta once it's up and running, and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, well, so right now, obviously, go on to Twitter, Inertia _social, blah, blah. But essentially, our closed beta right now is open to a very select few users. If you join the waitlist, over time, we will be slowly letting people kind of trickle in. And in the near future, essentially, we want to do two main things. We want to, A, launch our Inertia L1. That means, cheaper fees for you guys, faster execution speeds for our order book, and give developers, like many of you guys in the crowd, the ability to build on top of us. And the other thing that we're incredibly excited about as well is having different types of prediction markets.
Right. Don't spill the beans before we, pitch our thing right here. But like engage with us on Twitter, and then maybe you're gonna get into a closed beta. Right now it's embarrassing, so it's, you have to bear with us while we're actually improving the product, but we're really excited to bring people on.
Cool. Any questions from me? No pressure if not.
Do we get invited to the next innovation house?
I don't know. We'll see how the public beta goes.
So, obviously you've been overseeing everything that kind of goes on here, right? And you've seen every single team's mistakes, what they've done well. What's something that, like, if you were to go back to the very beginning of Codebase, like a piece of advice you would tell like the teams, or something that like you should just watch out for, like a piece of advice?
Be decisive. I think it's like the biggest piece is that when you're at this stage, you don't need a fully formed plan, and you don't need to have the right plan. You need to have a plan that you believe you can execute against and at least test a thesis on, right? And this is, frankly, it's how we built the program. Right. For the first cohort, for those who are interested, we had 15 companies in that, and we're like, okay, this is gonna be great. It's going to be all these companies. We're going to be all these people. And, it was a lot. It was way too many, in fact. We love you all, but that's not the point. We just didn't have the capacity to really deliver the type of program that we wanted to. And so accordingly, we now have this next cohort, which is beginning the end of this week with an onboarding here. And there's 5 companies. And we've redesigned the program to be a bit more basically like a Web3 MBA. Plus like really wraparound support from the Ava Labs team, mentors, as well as then our storytelling coach, Margot, that Marc and Anish mentioned. So she, for instance, previously had only been engaged with the teams in the last 3 weeks. This time she met with them yesterday, and we'll be working with them on a weekly basis. So, for us, it's really, but being decisive, because sometimes you have to change, and you got to do it quick.
I really want to touch on the storytelling fact. Like Margot is absolutely exemplary, right? And I think it again goes back to the fact of us as founders, we're so deep in our weeds, we're so deep in the product, and it's it's fucking boring, genuinely. Like if you're gonna tell,
you have this encyclopedia, right? You have this encyclopedia in your mind because you've been so deep in the industry you're in that once you try and say it to someone normal, they're gonna be like, oh, you've given me a Wikipedia encyclopedia, I don't care, just tell me what I can do now with your product.
Why does it matter, right? Like humans have been telling stories for forever, as long as we've been there. So it's why does it matter, and how can I put it, compact it in a captivating form?
Yeah, I think the trailer really demonstrates that.
Thank you.
It's not about the prediction market. It's about the fact that we all have these desires to do this anyways, so might as well do it on something that matters, and you can make it yourself. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining. Stick around for some pitches, and find me if you have any questions.